Why don't we go ahead and get started? My name is Luke Metzger. I'm the Executive Director of Environment Texas. We're a nonprofit advocate for clean air, clean water, and open spaces. And I'm joined today by Georgianne Moss from the Dallas County Community College District and the Texas Regional Alliance for Campus Sustainability. And then finally, Mike Bendewald from Texas Energy Aggregation. I'm going to go through this webinar. If you've got questions, please go ahead and type them in the box. As they come up, we'll answer them all at the end. So today we're going to talk about the opportunity for cities, colleges, school districts, and others to go solar. And we are big fans of solar for a lot of reasons. One, we know that currently fossil fuel generation causes serious health problems. It's linked coal-fired power plants are linked to the deaths of hundreds of Texans every year and contribute to global warming. Solar, on the other hand, is clean. We also know that solar is incredibly popular, the most popular form of energy. There was a poll done recently by a group called Conservative Texans for Energy Innovation. They polled GOP and independent voters and found that solar, again, was the most popular by more than 10 points over wind and natural gas. Those voters thought the state should do more to promote solar, and we know that's true across the political spectrum. We also know that solar is currently the cheapest form of energy, and that federal tax credits for solar will decline at the end of the year, so that time really is now for cities, schools, and colleges and other public entities to go solar. So first I'm going to have Georgianne talk about the 100% renewable energy pledge of the Texas Regional Alliance for Campus Sustainability. Have Mike talk about a new state program to aggregate the purchasing of cities and schools to buy renewable power. Mike will also talk about the difference between renewable energy credits that a lot of cities currently get and why power purchase agreements are a more meaningful way to support wind and solar power. And then finally, I'll wrap up by talking about how you can get involved to get your city or local college or school district to do more on renewables. So now let's go ahead and turn it over to Georgianne Moss, who is with the Texas Regional Alliance for Campus Sustainability.
Thank you so much, Luke. TRACS, the acronym that we use, is a network of faculty members, students, and sustainability professionals from colleges and universities across the state of Texas. And our goal is to advance sustainability in higher education in Texas. And we do that through providing providing and sharing resources and expertise and education and peer-to-peer support. So I actually chair the Texas Higher Education Renewable Energy Committee called THERIC, and our goal is to provide specifically tools and resources related to renewable energy, helping colleges and universities make their transition to 100% renewable energy just as quickly as possible. And when we first started, we did a competitive selection process to find a technical consultant who could help us, because really none of us on the committee knew that much about renewable energy. And so we went through a selection process, a very rigorous selection process, and we unanimously selected Texas Energy Aggregation. And Mike Bendewald is here with us today, and so he'll be able to tell you more about what they do. But so far, Texas Energy Aggregation, or TEA, has done an excellent job for us. They've provided outstanding consulting services, and they're managing the state's new renewable energy program for state entities. So Mike will tell you more about that in a minute. We've held 2 conferences so far. We're currently working on this pledge that Luke mentioned to you. So we're going to have a website. It's going to be a pledge site where organizations, higher education institutions can come in and publicly state their intention to transition to 100% renewable energy within the next 5 years. So the reason we're doing that is to create impact. We want to see new renewable coming onto the grid just as quickly as possible. There's a lot of ways to buy renewable energy. You can do it through RECs, but really we're trying to make a difference by bringing new renewable onto the grid. And so we believe that we have a very narrow window of opportunity to mitigate the worst effects of climate change, and that we think that higher education should not only promote renewable energy to its students and communities, but they should be early adopters. Higher education should be leading and modeling what we teach to our students and communities. And so the idea behind the pledge is there's safety in numbers. If we can get higher education institutions to put their names out there and tell other people in the state that this is their intent and they intend to do it within the next 5 years, then that's going to make other businesses and industries feel much more comfortable doing the same thing. And so we expect to launch this website in the next 60 days. When we start, it's going to be for higher education only, but within the next year, we want to open it up to all business, industry, all cities, counties, the state, whoever. And again, the idea is there's safety in numbers. When a business owner or CEO sees that his or her peers are already planning to do this, it's going to make it much more comfortable and easy for them to consider doing the same thing. So with that, I will pass it on to Mike Bendewall, who is with Texas Energy Aggregation.
Okay, thank you, Georgianne. And thank you to Luke as well for, both of your organizations and efforts in Texas. We feel real honored that you all are, allowing us to present here today and supporting what we're trying to do in Texas, which is a real, noble thing. And we really appreciate all your efforts toward more renewable energy in Texas. So speaking to an Environment Texas audience, I can say that I'm an environmentalist. And for many years, I worked for this guy who, he's a hero of mine. You can take his quote in a number of different ways. I think, for me, it's sort of, you can have the most amazing clean energy, innovative technology, but it's really not going to get any traction until you've got a cultural change, right? Where there's a culture of openness, a willingness to change, transparency, and really bottom line market economics are able to come to play as well. So to that end, I moved to Texas a little over a year ago to join Texas Energy Aggregation, which had an opportunity to create a new initiative hand in hand with SECO, the State Energy Conservation Office. They help us market this initiative, which had been known as Texas Power Pool. It's enabled by a contract that my company has, Texas Comptroller State Procurement Division. Recently, we're undergoing a rebranding, and that's going to start here soon. It hasn't even been announced yet on the SECO webpage, but we're going to start calling this the State of Texas Renewable Energy Cooperative. And so look for that name as well in the press as we move forward. And you can go ahead and start referring our effort to this name, which is really a power purchasing option for renewable energy. So why is the renewable energy cooperative important, or why is it something that you all might want to consider for your local government entity or your local university or college? First and foremost, as the intent of this webinar, right, is to talk about renewable energy. This is a renewable energy purchasing option. But perhaps most important for the government entities is that they're able to save taxpayer money. This is an opportunity to lock in on a long term, the lowest fixed price electricity that's really ever been offered in Texas. You might have contracts for like 1 or 3 years at below 3 cents, but not for 12 years. This is the 12-year plus contract that you're going to have below 3 cents, and that doesn't include transmission costs. That is the a very low rate, the lowest rate that you see in Texas these days. So another element of this is that we pride ourselves in being very transparent and competitive. We have the state comptroller's office looking over our shoulder, and we report to them. This type of transparency and competitive bidding, in the short time that I've been working in Texas, I've seen a limited amount of that in other purchasing programs. We also leverage aggregated purchasing power. So we have been serving the largest state agencies in Texas for the past 8 years now. And they are, they're interested in this. We have cities that have signed up. We have college districts, school districts, universities, private universities. Some of the largest energy users in Texas are expressing interest in this. And there's value in an aggregated purchasing power. Value goes up when volume goes up. A lot of people tell us that, well, I can't, that sounds all well and good, but I can't participate because I've already have a contract for power many years in the future. That doesn't matter. We can still get you signed up. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of safety and accountability when you're using a program that is operated via a contract with the Comptroller Statewide Procurement Division. So just really briefly, a little bit more on that. The Comptroller Statewide Procurement Division, or Purchasing Division, is a state agency that its whole purpose is to facilitate contracts and procurement. This is a contract that we won with that agency. It's called 961-M2. There's a great ring to it. We organized the contract and the initiative in the following way. The state of Texas issued the RFP. SECO helped with that RFP. TEA, my company, Texas Energy Aggregation, won that RFP. We competed against several others, up to 30 different consultants. We get assistance from Rocky Mountain Institute, and now we offer the state of Texas Renewable Energy Cooperative, which is marketed by SECO. And there's a web page. It's currently called Texas Power Pool. It's under the SECO resources. We can provide a link later. Who is Texas Energy Aggregation? We've been working in Texas since 2002. We're licensed by the Public Utility Commission to aggregate public entities. We are independently owned. We're, sometimes consultants and aggregators are owned by other companies. We are not. We have served the largest state agencies in Texas, as well as hundreds of municipalities and thousands of commercial customers, contracts. Basically, we have all the qualifications to be a contractor for the state. And we're also passionate about saving taxpayer money, consumer protections. We've spearheaded legislation to that end. So let's talk a little bit about renewable energy procurement. So there's been a lot of activity in this space where it's the difference between going out and just getting a retail power contract versus going out and getting your own contract with a wholesale renewable energy plant. And that's what all these companies are doing. So you might work for these companies, you might buy products from these companies. This is just a partial list. This space is growing rapidly. The volume of deals has increased 20-fold over the last 5 years or so. 2018 was a record year, more than double any other year, and it's expected to continue to increase. Texas, as you might expect, is a leader in this area. Anything energy, right? Texas is a leader here. Most of the deals, we outpace any other state. In the past, corporations have contracted for renewable energy mostly for sustainability reasons, which we might consider image-driven or meeting corporate goals, investor requirements, etc. Mostly Fortune 100 companies with a large balance sheet that are able to take on sort of a riskier contract. So you looked at, there's Microsoft, Facebook, et cetera, that was doing these deals. Now the landscape has changed. Recently, just in the last 6 months, Exxon announced that they did a 500 megawatt, very, very large purchase in West Texas to power their oil pumping out there. And, do they do that for sustainability reasons? Probably not. I think they do it because they need the power. And right now, as Luke mentioned, solar power is the cheapest power that they can get. And so that's why they do it. It's more of a financially driven decision. And, we see this trend happening. We see these corporates saving money, making this decision, and we want to open that up to public entities. Just to further on the point about solar being the lowest cost power, this is a study from ERCOT. ERCOT runs the grid for Texas, and they do studies to say, well, what's going to be the most cost-effective generation that's going to come on the grid over the next 15 years? And here's the chart they produced. So they looked at 5 different scenarios: current trends, a high economic growth scenario, a scenario where maybe there's more favorable renewables policy and unfavorable, and then high EV penetrations. And as you can see, solar is a huge part of this moving forward, as is wind in almost all the cases. So you don't have to take it from us. You don't have to take it from Luke. You can just look at the data right here from ERCOT. And on the point of aggregation, this is a really important point. Not anybody can just go out and save money with renewable energy. Put a few solar panels on the roof of your house. Unfortunately, you may not be saving money. If you get a little bigger and you're able to offset some of your transmission costs, maybe you can start to save money. When you get to the really big scale of like 50 to 100 megawatts, you really need to get to about 100 megawatts in order to very much save costs and save taxpayer expense if you're a public entity. So it creates a rub because not very many entities, in fact, I can't think of one, could reasonably, without much risk, buy a 100 megawatt renewable power plant by themselves. They couldn't take all that power. It's too much power. Even like City of Houston, they could barely maybe do it. So, you think about who else could do this? Very few. So you have to aggregate. You have to put customers together, and it's complicated. It's difficult to do this, but there's a payoff. When you go from 25 megawatts to 100 megawatts for solar, you're saving nearly 20%, give or take. For wind, maybe closer to 30%. So 30% off the power price. That's a big deal. So there's a lot, it pays off to aggregate. And it's not just Texas Energy Aggregation that's doing aggregation. This is a thing that's happening across the U.S. because these economics are just the same, whether you're in Texas or elsewhere, whether you're a commercial entity or a public entity. Aggregations are a growing trend. And as you can see in this chart, this is all the capacity of those renewable energy deals that are non-utility deals. And as you can see, the share of aggregated buys is growing. It's becoming almost 50-50 in 2018. I mentioned City of Houston. They did a 20-year solar power purchase agreement. 20 years, that's a long time to contract for power for public entities. But they stepped out of the comfort zone and did that. And they're leaders in this space, right? They're now ranked number one by the US EPA for local government. And that's because they did a power purchase agreement. And, their taxpayers should thank them as well because they're saving money. Fort Hood did this. Actually, the DoD is a very good internal sustainability and renewable energy initiative. They've been studying this a long time. They're very good at it. They did a deal here. They actually did a 30-year commitment to a wind farm, and they also have on-site solar. So not only are they benefiting from off-site wind, they're also benefiting from on-site resiliency. So when the power goes out, which it often does, they've got solar right there to help with them offset their consumption that's required. Here's an example of universities going into an aggregation. This is George Washington University, American University, and the hospital as well. They, again, did a 20-year power purchase agreement a few years ago, and they're getting about 50% of their power from this renewable energy plant, this solar power plant. They're seeing savings, and they're also reaching their carbon reduction goal. So that was a bit about the program and kind of the renewable energy purchasing trends. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between renewable energy credits and power purchase agreements. So, here's a kind of a diagram that helps me think it through. Basically, you've got, I could put like a bathtub in the power grid, right? It's sort of you got all these generators on the left side, traditional energy generators as well as renewable energy generators, and they're all pouring power into the grid. And there's really no way to track it. It's just, it's laws of physics, and they just dump that power into the grid, and then the grid facilitates that power into your community or your facilities. And there's really no way to track it. So you don't know if that's coal power or if that's renewable power. And so what these smart people did is say, well, let's identify this thing called the renewable energy credit that we can say, okay, well, there's a certain amount of power that came off of this solar plant or wind power plant, and let's track that, and then we can sell that to the communities or other entities that want to support more renewable energy on the grid. And so RECs have really become, they are the only means to allocate renewable energy across this shared electric grid. There's sort of a legal, contract. And so they allow you to legally claim the attributes of that renewable energy. And, they also, you can claim that, your demand for power was met by that renewable plant. So that's what a REC does. It enables sort of attribution to a particular power plant. Now, there is sort of a trend in murmurs and conversations and discussions among environmentalists and the EPA alike that says, well, RECs are all well and good, and it's nice to be able to track where the power's coming from, but what impact am I having when I buy a REC? And in some cases, your impact is quite large because RECs can be pretty expensive in some states. In Texas, they're not so expensive. And, they're probably actually about less than $0.001, so 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour, probably less than that in Texas. We're like half that. Whereas, in order to get new build solar or new build wind, it needs a commitment from someone to pay them at least 2 cents a kilowatt hour for like 20 years or 15 years. In this market, maybe more like 12 years. So the difference is kind of stark, right? What are you doing when you buy a REC? Are you supporting impact? Well, maybe it's a little bit less impact than signing an actual power purchase agreement where you're buying the power from that plant at a rate of like 2 cents or more. And so we often run up against a response that says, well, I have a 100% green contract already, so I don't need to do renewable energy. I already have renewable energy. My retail electricity provider tells me I have it. And that's fine, and it's true. And really what that contract is RECs, right? It's basically grid power plus RECs. And so as this sort of reality of people starting to take notice that and take an interest in impact, I think RECs, especially in Texas where they're so cheap, might become sort of a thing of the past, right? More like a T-Rex. So sorry for the stupid joke here. So that's kind of all I have to say about the RECs and PPAs perspective, and I'll hand it back over to Luke.
Public entities to join formerly the Power Pool, now the State of Texas Renewable Energy Co-op, and it's been real successful. I think already they're up to about 140 megawatts of load that is interested in participating. That's enough solar power to power about 40,000 homes. So it's already doing real well. However, the potential is far greater. We know that there's a lot of utility scale solar kind of in the queue to interconnect or has been approved by ERCOT, but that don't yet have purchasers to buy that power. And so cities and counties and school districts can really kind of help make sure that solar gets built by signing up with the co-op. And there's still time. I think this program is going to continue for multiple years. But I think for this current kind of aggregation, I think TEA is looking for folks to sign up really in the next month or so. Is that right, Mike? So I believe that's right. So what we're doing then is still working to reach out and get more entities that take advantage of this opportunity and look into the co-op. And so we would love your help kind of reaching out to more folks. We've sent letters to, I think, something like 150 different entities around the state and have already gotten some interest from that. I think one large school district, one large university system, one large city all follow up on our letter and reach out to TEA and the co-op. So I think part of the problem is that people just don't know about it yet. And or they might think, oh, this is too good to be true, but it's not. And so, but we just need to kind of get in touch with kind of local elected officials and administrators and let them know about this opportunity and encourage them to look into it and see if it's right for them. So yeah, first thing would be, reach out to that entity, ask for a meeting, bring in friends and colleagues to help you make the case for joining. If there's a school board meeting or a city council hearing, go and speak at the hearing publicly and make your request. You might write a letter to the editor, to your local newspaper, and then let us know. We would love to help any way we can, joining you for some of those meetings or helping you with questions that come up and in any other way. So, this is a really exciting opportunity. If we were able to get, just all the public entities in Texas to join, that would represent something like 5 or 10% of all the electricity load in the state. And given that, Texas is number one in the country for global warming pollution, that would take a big bite out of that and really help continue Texas's leadership in clean power. Thank you all for joining us. We're happy to take questions now. If you want to just chat them or in the little Q&A box. Thank you so much to Georgianne and Mike. Looks like we have a question. The question is, I don't understand the relationship between the Texas Regional Alliance for Campus Sustainability and the State of Texas Renewable Energy Co-op. Mike, do you want to take that one?
Basically, the relationship is Georgianne's group selected Texas Energy Aggregation to be a consultant to help them think through the renewable energy purchasing that they were considering as a consortium. Is that pretty accurate from your perspective, Georgianne?
Yes, and it's an interesting story because when we first came to you, we were not aware that the state was already working on that. And so we came to you because Trax wanted to see if we could put together an aggregation for state colleges and universities. And then lo and behold, we found out when we started working with you that the state of Texas was already working on that. And so that consortium morphed into a committee, Trax, and we've now focused our energy on promotion and education about renewable energy and about the tools and resources that are out there. But when we first started, it was completely separate from tracks, and we were just looking to be able to put together an aggregation, and the state was already doing that.
Great. Thanks, Mike and Georgianne. All right, then. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.